So today we are going to start with the next topic, that is wave optics. So in chapter number 9, that is ray optics, we saw how different phenomena takes place, that is reflection of light, refraction of light, scattering of light, dispersion of light. Okay, so all these phenomena we saw in the ray optics, wherein we just considered a ray of light which is incident either on the mirror or a lens, and we saw what was the result of it. But if you go to see, we cannot exactly tell the nature of the light, what kind of nature this light shows. You can consider light as a wave also, but there are some phenomena which provides a contradiction, wherein you will have to consider that light behaves like a particle. So the behavior of light is very weird. Okay, we feel that it behaves like a particle sometimes, we feel that it behaves like a wave sometimes, but till today the nature of this wave is unknown. It is not known what exactly is light. That is why we have the next chapter to us, that is dual nature of light, wherein we are going to see how a light behaves like a particle also, and how a light behaves like a wave also. Okay, so if we consider a light as a particle, okay, we can discuss the various processes such as reflection of light, the refraction of light, or the absorption of light, which we have already studied. But if you go to see, if you take the same processes and try to explain it considering light as a wave, okay, you will not be able to do it. Okay, but if you consider light as a wave, you may able to discuss the processes such as interference of light, diffraction of light, and etc., which we are going to learn in this chapter. Okay, so in this chapter specifically we are going to learn what do you mean by a Huygens principle, okay, which gives you a foundation where we are going to treat the light as a wave. Okay, and we are going to learn different properties to explain us the phenomena such as interference of light and diffraction of light. Polarization is also there, but it is not there for this year. So we will see the Huygens principle statement, and then after that we are going to look at the different processes. Okay, first we are going to look at interference of light and then the diffraction of light. But before going into this topic, we are required to know some of the terms related to this wave nature of the light. So we'll go through that first. So the first term which we need to know over here is something called as wavefront, which is very important. It's wavefront. Okay, that is we are going to learn what is the concept of this wavefront. So to explain this wavefront in a better way, we will consider an example of a still water and a stone which is dropped in a still water. Okay, so let us consider there is a surface of still water. So this is going to be my surface of still water. So what I do is I just drop a stone in this surface of still water. So what will you see over here? Once you put a stone in this still water, there will be circular patterns of alternate crest and troughs which are going to begin to spread from that point of impact where you have put the stone. Okay, so the structure will be something like this, the image which you can see over here. Okay, once you drop a stone in the still water, there will be this ripples which are coming, ripple effect. Correct? There will be continuous troughs and troughs and crest, troughs and crest, troughs and crest, trough and crest. There will be alternate troughs and alternate crest happening over here. Okay, there will be ups and downs. So clearly, what can you see from here? That all the particles which are on the crest, supposing this is the crest I consider, so all the particles lying on the crest are in the position of their maximum upward displacement. They are showing us the maximum upward displacement. Similarly, all the particles which are lying on the trough, supposing I consider this trough over here, and all the particles lying over here are going to have maximum downward displacement. They will show us maximum downward displacement. Therefore, they are going to be in the same phase. What do you mean by same phase? Supposing they have same amplitude of vibration. The two particles have same amplitude of vibration or they have same amplitude, they are said to be in phase. Correct? When are two waves said to be in phase? Supposing there is one wave which is going like this. This is one wave, and there is another wave which is exactly coinciding with the first wave. Something like this. So can I say that these two waves are in phase? Obviously yes, because when the first wave is at its zero, its value is 0, amplitude is 0. When the first wave, now this is a complete oscillation, okay, from here to here it's a complete oscillation, let's consider. So when the wave is at its 1/4 of the path, both the waves are its maximum, positive maximum. When the waves reach the half of the oscillation, they are both becoming 0 again. They are coming to the mean position. And when they are becoming 3/4 of their path, they are again both at the same position, that is negative maximum. And again at the completion of the oscillation, they are at 0. So both are going hand in hand. They are both going together. That means these two waves are in phase. Supposing I have one wave something like this. One wave something like this, and another wave is like this. That means when one wave is showing the maximum, the other wave is having 0. When one wave is having 0, the other wave is having maximum. So such waves are out of phase waves. Okay, these two waves are out of phase. These waves are in phase. That means if you apply the same concept in case of that water there, okay, what we can say, all the particles which are showing the trough, that is the minimum or the maximum negative displacement, okay, are going to be in phase. Similarly, all the particles which are showing the crest, that is which are having the maximum positive displacement, are again in phase. Okay, so such locus of points which are oscillating in the same phase, all the particles are in same phase, so such a locus of point in this case is a concentric circle. So this concentric circles can be called as a wavefront. So what do you understand by a wavefront? So every crest over here or a trough over here will be a wavefront. That means all the particles on this surface, which we call as a wavefront, are going to be in phase. They are going to behave in a same manner. They are going to have the same amplitude of oscillation. Okay, so they are going to be in phase. All the particles are going to be in phase. So how do we define a wavefront over here? A wavefront can be defined as a continuous locus of all such particles of the medium which are vibrating in the same phase. Okay, so a surface having a constant phase, okay, can be called as a wavefront. So supposing you drop a stone over here, obviously there will be waves which are generated in all the directions. Correct? No, there will be waves generated in all the direction, behind also, obviously. Something like this. Okay, so if we try to draw these waves exactly, how will they look like? They will be something like this. So supposing the first oscillation, the first half of the oscillation, I consider the maximum point. Let's say this point is A, this point is maximum of the second wave B, this is maximum of the third wave C, and if I join them together, so obviously A, B and C are in phase. They are having the same phase because they are having the maximum amplitude. They are vibrating with the same phase. If you see over here, they all three are having the same magnitude at that point. So supposing I join these 3 points together, if I join these 3 points together, what I will get is nothing but a wavefront. This is going to be my wavefront. So locus of such points which are having the same phase will be called as a wavefront. Okay. So now there can be different types of wavefronts. Okay, and these different types of wavefronts are depending upon the source which is producing this wavefront. Okay, so obviously now let us come back from water to the light. Okay, because we are going to deal with light and not water. So apply the same concept of wavefront to the light now. Okay, forget about water, it was just to explain you. Now apply the same concept of wavefront to the light. So there can be different types of wavefront. Okay, we'll see the wavefront little bit in detail so that you will understand it better. So the geometrical shape of this wavefront, it might be spherical, it might be cylindrical, it might be a plane. Okay, so this geometrical shape of the wavefront is going to depend on the source of disturbance which is produced. Source of disturbance in a water, for example, or which is spherical most of the time, or in a form of circle for water. But source of disturbance, what do you mean by here, is the source of light, how the light is produced over here. Okay, so the geometrical shape of wavefront is going to depend upon the source of disturbance. So let us discuss some of the common shapes of this wavefront. So the first shape is the spherical wavefront. First type of wavefront we have is the spherical wavefront. So in the case of waves which are traveling in all the direction from a point source, just imagine you have a point source of light. So obviously around it in a spherical 3 dimension, in all the direction it will be spreading the light. Correct? No, the light will be going in all the 3 dimensional directions. So obviously that is going to form a sphere around it. So that is going to be a spherical wavefront. So supposing you have a source of light and you consider the ray of light which is traveling at a distance after 1 second in all the directions, just 1 second in all the direction, you will see that it will form a sphere. That wavefront is going to form a sphere, and that is nothing but a spherical wavefront. So spherical wavefront is generated when the waves travel in all the direction from a point source. Okay, so why does this happen? This is because all such points are equidistant from the point source which lie on the sphere. Okay, so all these points are going to be equidistant, and since the source is kept in a single medium, all the waves are going to travel with the same speed of light. Supposing this source of light is placed in air, all the waves which are generated from this source of light are going to travel with a speed of 3 into 10 raised to 8 meters per second. There will be no variation in the speed. So if you check the distance traveled by them after a particular time, you will see that all the distances will be equal in all the direction. And if you join all the points after, for example, 1 second, you will see that you will form a sphere will be formed around it, and that sphere can be considered as a spherical wavefront which is around that point source. Okay, the disturbance which starting from the source S will reach all these points simultaneously because they are equidistant from that source. Okay, so how will we show it using a figure? Spherical wavefront. Supposing I have this source of light over here, there will be spherical wavefronts. So obviously we cannot draw 3D over here, so we'll have to draw 2D. So there will be concentric circles. This will be actually 3D. Okay, there will be spheres around this source which are going to be concentric, something like this. This is going to be the source S, and there will be wavefront in the shape of spheres around it. Okay, that means what? All these are wavefronts. Okay, there are names for these wavefronts. We'll discuss those names later. So this is your spherical wavefront. And what does the wavefront mean? All the points on this sphere are going to be in phase. All the points on this sphere are again going to be in phase, and all the points on this sphere are again going to be in phase. Okay, They are going to be in the same phase. That is why we call it as a wavefront. The second type of wavefront is cylindrical wavefront. Second type of wavefront is cylindrical wavefront. So when a source of light is linear in shape, such as a fine rectangular slit, okay, there is a fine rectangular slit. So in this case, the wavefront is going to be in the shape of a cylinder. Supposing I have a source of light which is a fine slit. Okay, so what is going to happen from here is the waves are going to go all around like this. Correct? The waves are going to go all around like this in 3D. Okay, so if you join all these points, what you will get is nothing but a cylinder around it. Something like this. You will get a cylinder. That means all the points on this cylinder are going to be in phase. Okay, that is nothing but your cylindrical wavefront. Okay, why this is happening? This is because the locus of all such points which are equidistant from the linear source will form a cylinder. If you consider points which are equidistant from this linear source, obviously you join those points, you will find it is a cylinder. Okay, so that is how we get a cylindrical wavefront. So let's draw it in a proper way. So if this is your linear source of light, so the waves will be traveling like this, equidistant. Okay, this should be equidistant. Similarly down here, so join this and you get a cylindrical wavefront over here. The third type of wavefront is plane wavefront. What do we understand by a plane wavefront? So as the spherical or the cylindrical wavefront advances, its curvature is going to decrease as it progresses. Correct? No? Supposing I have a point source over here, its wavefront is going to be like this, spherical. Okay. But then as I go away and away, obviously this curvature is going to reduce. This will start becoming flat and flatter. Correct? No? So finally, somewhere down the lane, what will happen is the wavefront which you are going to get is going to become very plane. If you consider a small part of this wavefront, let's say this part only, you will see that this will behave like a plane surface over here. Okay, and this will be called as a plane wavefront. So as you go away from a point source or a linear source of light, its curvature of the wavefront will go on decreasing as you progresses away. So a small portion of such a wavefront at large distance from the source will be a plane wavefront. That will be called as a plane wavefront. So supposing the source is very far, the source is lying over here, and I want to draw a plane wavefront for this source only. Okay, this is the spherical wavefront I had drawn. This is the source. So this will go on, and finally here somewhere it will become plane. So how will a plane wavefront look like? I will just draw it in 3D. So plane wavefront will be something like this. So rays of light will draw later. This is going to be your plane wavefront. These are going to be the plane wavefronts. Okay. This is cylindrical wavefront. So now let us see what is a ray of light. So it is seen that whatever is the shape of the wavefront, may it be a spherical shape of wavefront or a cylindrical or a plane wavefront, the disturbance is going to travel outwards along straight line emerging from the source. So if you look at this over here, all these three wavefronts, you will see that the disturbance is traveling outwards. Just drop a stone in the still water. How the disturbance travel? It goes radially outwards. Correct? So if I want to draw the directions, it is going to be something like this. It will be radially outwards. The disturbance will travel something like this. Whatever may be the shape of the wavefront. Correct? In this case also I have drawn over here. See, it is going radially outward. Here also it will be radially outwards at all the points along this cylindrical surface. Okay. Here also, if you see, this will be parallel waves which are coming. Something like this. Correct? That is the energy of this wave. The energy of, obviously this light is going to have some energy. So energy of this wave is going to travel in the direction perpendicular to the wavefront, which is very important. Okay. So propagation of the wave will be always perpendicular. The energy traveling will be always perpendicular to the wavefront. That is the important point. Okay. So your propagation, the direction of propagation is always going to be perpendicular to your wavefront. Something like this. Okay. So here also it is going to be perpendicular to this wavefront. And here also obviously it is perpendicular to the plane. So always remember, the energy of the wave is going to travel in the direction perpendicular to the wavefront. So the arrow which is drawn perpendicular to the wavefront in the direction of propagation of wave will be called as a rays. So all this which I have drawn over here are nothing but the rays. This is a ray of light. Okay, so what is a ray of light? It is a simple line which is having an arrow. And how that line is drawn? That line will be drawn perpendicular to the wavefront. So an arrow which is drawn perpendicular to the wavefront, in which direction? In the direction of propagation of the wave. In the direction in which the wave is propagating, the wave is progressing. Okay, that arrow will be called as the ray. Alright. So basically, ray of light is going to represent the path along which the light travels. It is only a line which tells you in which direction your light is traveling, which we have already used in nothing but our ray optics. Entirely the ray optics was about rays. Okay, so it was just showing us how the direction of light is. Okay, so it is the arrow which is drawn perpendicular to the wavefront in the direction of propagation of wave. Remember this. So what do we understand from here? We understand that the rays are always perpendicular to the wavefront. Very, very important. The ray which you draw for a light is going to be perpendicular to the wavefront. Okay, this is an important point. And the second point we need to know over here is the time taken for light to travel from one wavefront to the another wavefront is the same along that particular ray. Okay, so if you consider a particular ray, the time taken to go from one wavefront to the other will remain constant. It will throughout remain constant. Okay, if you can check if you take the wavefronts at equal distances, then you will see that the ray travels that equal distances in the same time if the medium is same. Obviously, if the medium changes, the speed of light will change, the time will change. But if your ray is traveling in the same medium, if the ray is traveling in the same medium and the wavefronts are marked equidistant, then the time taken to reach from here to here will be same as time taken to reach from here to here, will be time taken to reach from here to here, and so on. Okay, so this is the second point which has to be remembered over here. So if you consider a group of parallel rays, if you combine many rays together which are parallel, we get a beam of light. Okay, that is nothing but a beam of light. So a group of parallel rays can be called as a beam of light. This is what we need to understand here. So this was the basics about wavefront, the concept of wavefront. Next, we are going to look at the Huygens principle. Okay, so next is the Huygens principle of secondary wavelets. We'll understand what is this term secondary wavelets. Okay, but before that, we'll go through this Huygens principle. That is, each point on a wavefront. We know now what is a wavefront. Wavefront is a surface of constant phase. Every particle on the surface, on this surface, which is called as the wavefront, will behave in the same phase. Okay, will be in the same phase. Okay, so each point on the wavefront is a source of secondary waves which add up to give a wavefront at any later time. So what do we understand from here? We see that supposing this is the source, okay, and this is the wavefront which is generated by this source. That means what? These are the rays which are given out. So basically this is at the lower, let's say this is again at the lower maximum, this is again at the lower maximum, let's say. Okay, so all these points are in phase. That means this becomes your first wavefront. Okay, so this is called as the primary wavefront. So this is your primary wavefront. That means all the points on this wavefront are in phase. Okay, so all the points on this wavefront are going to behave individually like a source of light. They are individually going to behave like a source of light. Meaning what? I'll draw it again. I'll redraw it again. So this is the same source. This is the same wavefront, the primary wavefront. This is my primary wavefront, which is going to be circular. I'm just taking one side of it. So every particle, I'll just randomly pick the particles 1, 2, 3 and 4. So every particle on this wavefront is going to behave like an individual source of light. Meaning what? This source of light created its own spherical wavefront. Similarly, this particle over here, let's say particle A, is going to behave like he's the source. He's the source now. Okay, and he will provide us with his own wavefront, a small tiny wavefront. Similarly, this particle, let's say particle B, is going to behave like a source and produce its own wavefront. Particle C is again going to behave like a source and produce its own wavefront, and will go on and on and on. So each and every particle which is present are going to produce their own wavefronts. Are you understanding this? So they are going to behave like individual source of light and produce their own wavefronts, and these are called as the secondary wavelets. These are called as the secondary wavelets. So basically these secondary wavelets are now going to produce the next successive wavefront. How? They are going to provide us an envelope. They are going to provide us a forward envelope of the secondary wavelength at that time. So what we are going to do, supposing we draw tangents to these wavelets. We draw tangents to these wavelets and join these tangents together. If I join these tangents together, what I am going to get is the secondary wavefront. So basically my secondary wavefront will look something like this. So I just take the tangential point and join them together. Okay, this is not exactly to the scale, so it is not coming proper, but it is going to be exactly concentric circle. It will be exact concentric circle, and this will be called as the secondary wavefront. This will be your secondary wavefront. That means what did I do? What did I do? I considered a specific time t. I took a specific time t. Okay, and my formula is what? Speed is equal to distance upon time. So if I consider the time as t, I want to check the next wavefront in time t. This was the primary wavefront, let's say at t is equal to 0 seconds. I want to check the next wavefront. I want to see what is the wavefront at time t. The speed of light is, let's say, c, which will be equal to distance traveled by the wave divided by time. So distance traveled by the wave will be what? C multiplied by t. So you will see that this distance which is traveled by this wave will be nothing but c multiplied by t. That means this wavelets, the secondary wavelets which are generated over here, are going to have a radius of c multiplied by t. That is speed of the wave multiplied by the time in which you are forming the next wavefront. Okay, and that will be the radius, and the secondary wavelets will be formed. And once you join their tangents together, the tangential envelope is going to give you the forward or the successive wavefront, which is going to be called as the secondary wavefront. So what is the basic foundation over here? What is the foundation of the wave theory? Is nothing but the Huygens principle, which gives us the concept of secondary wavelets. And what does that state? Each point on the wavefront, that is this A, B, C, D that I have marked, each of the point on this wavefront is a source of secondary wave, that is secondary wavelet. Other name for secondary wavelet is secondary wave, okay, which is going to add up to give us the wavefront, which is the secondary wavefront. They are going to add up to give us the secondary wavefront at any later time that I have considered at time t. So at any later time t, if I consider their tangents and join them together, I am going to get a successive wavefront. If I take this secondary wavefront now, this is my secondary wavefront now. Each point on the secondary wavefront are again going to form their own wavelets. And if I join the tangents of this wavelets, I am going to get the next wavefront. So now this one will become primary wavefront, this one will become secondary wavefront. And this will go on and on and on. And this is a very important theory when we are going to learn interference. The interference of light is completely based on this. Constructive interference, destructive interference is what? Is completely based on this Huygens principle of secondary wavelets. Okay, that is why this is very, very important and serves as a foundation for the wave theory of light. So the Huygens principle is each point on the wavefront is a source of secondary wave which add up to give us the wavefront at any later time. That is the successive wavefront you are going to get over here. So this principle is based on the following assumptions. There are three assumptions which is the base of this statement over here. The first assumption is each point on the wavefront, as I told you, each point on the wavefront that I have considered A, B, C and D is going to act as a fresh source of new disturbance. It is going to act as a fresh source over here, which will be called as a secondary wave or a secondary wavelet. So new disturbance will be generated over here by considering this ABC as a fresh source of disturbance, and they will be called as a secondary wave or wavelet. This is the first assumption. The second assumption is that the secondary wavelets spread out in all the directions with the speed of light in the given medium. They are going to get spread in all the direction in 3D, obviously, because it is acting as a source, right? It is acting as a source, so it is going to spread in all the direction as a spherical wavefront, okay, in 3D around it. And the third one is the new wavefront at any later time is given by the forward envelope. So if you just take tangents and you join them, you will get a tangential surface in the forward direction over here, which is going to give you the secondary wavefront. So these are the three assumptions on which the Huygens principle is based upon. So now let us move on to the Huygens construction. How do we construct the wavefronts? So Huygens construction is a geometrical method for locating new position and the shape of the wavefront at any instant from its known position. Supposing I tell you that the initial position of the wavefront or initial type of the wavefront is spherical, you can easily locate the next wavefront, the secondary wavefront, and the next one and the consecutive one. Okay, if I tell you that the present wavefront of a particular source of disturbance is a plane wavefront, you can easily construct the next wavefront for it. Okay, so this is a geometrical method in which we are going to locate a new position which is based on the shape of the previous wavefront which is given to us. Okay, so the various steps involved over here we are going to see now. So we'll consider a spherical or a plane wavefront which is moving in the forward direction. Okay, so let us consider a wavefront AB. So let us consider both at once. We'll consider there is a spherical wavefront as well as a plane wavefront. So let us say that this is my wavefront AB, which is spherical, and there is one more wavefront we'll consider. So this is A and B. Okay, so now according to the Huygens principle, each point on AB becomes a source of secondary disturbance. We know that, which travels with the speed of light, obviously in the medium, in a medium if you consider as air. Okay, that is speed of light is c. So to find a new wavefront at time t, we are going to draw the spheres which is having a radius of c multiplied by t, which we get from this formula. Speed is equal to distance upon time. So speed is the speed of light. So in time t we need to find out the new wavefront, and distance travelled by the wavelet will be d, that is radii of the secondary wavelet will be d. So d will be equal to c multiplied by t. So each of the point on this wavefront is going to behave like the independent source of disturbance, and it is going to produce its own wavelets. So let's say these are the secondary wavelets. And what is the radii of this wavelets? The radii of this wavelets is going to be equal to c multiplied by t. So this is one point over here. Let's say small a, this is small b, this is small c, and this is small d. Okay, so these individual points small a, b, c, d are going to behave like individual source of disturbance and produce its own wavelets, and this distance travelled by them is going to be c multiplied by t. I told you how. Okay, so now the forward envelope or the tangential surface, if I draw over here, will be another surface. So let's draw the tangential surface. This is the tangential surface. Let's say this surface is CD. Okay, so this surface which is drawn to the secondary wavelets is the new wavefront which is found at time t. Okay, so in time t the wave has travelled this much distance, and this you get as the secondary wavefront. That means supposing I mark this point as a dash, b dash, c dash and d dash. So all these points are again going to behave like individual source of disturbance and produce their own wavelets. Okay, so the lines a dash, b dash, c dash and d dash are going to be what? Their nature will be how? They are going to be perpendicular to this wavefront, as we had discussed. Okay, so all these lines a dash, b dash, c dash, d dash are going to be perpendicular to AB as well as CD. AB as well as CD. Something like this. So along this line, the energy is going to flow from AB to CD. So this is the direction of propagation of wave, along which the direction, the energy is going to flow. So these lines represent nothing but the rays. So all these things are nothing but rays, the rays of light. Okay, so rays of light are always normal to the wavefront. Okay, I'll write over here because this is an important statement. Rays of light, ray of light is perpendicular to wavefront. Okay, what will happen in case of a plane wavefront over here? So all the points on this plane wavefront, let's say A, B, C and D are going to behave like individual disturbance, and they are going to produce the secondary wavelets. Same in case of a spherical, something like this. Okay, Okay, so the distance or the radius over here is again going to be c multiplied by t, wherein you are considering the next wavefront in time t. Okay, the time taken by the ray to reach from here to here, or the wave to reach from here to here, is nothing but t. So draw a tangential envelope over here, a tangential surface over here. So a tangential surface is going to be a next wavefront, which is, you will see that it is parallel line. Okay, so this is going to be your CD. This is going to be your CD. Okay, this will be tangential. Fine, this will be touching, it will be forming a tangent over here. So CD is going to be your next wavefront. Again, AA dash, BB dash, CC dash and DD dash are going to be perpendicular to both the wavefronts. They are going to be perpendicular to the both wavefronts over here. Okay, and this are going to represent the ray of light which are going to be parallel. These are all going to be ray of light which are going to be perpendicular to the wavefront at every point. Okay, so now let us look at the behavior of prism, lens and a mirror. Okay, and the wavefront over here, the incident wavefront and a refracted wavefront or a reflected wavefront, how they appear over here. Okay, so first let us consider a prism. First we'll consider a prism. So let's draw a prism first. So this is a prism over here. What I will do is, I'll consider a ray of light which is coming from a source. Okay, so obviously this ray of light is coming from the same source, so they will be covering equal distances in equal interval of time. So if I want to draw a wavefront over here, the wavefront will be exactly perpendicular. So since the parallel ray of light is coming, so obviously the wavefront is going to be a plane wavefront over here. So the wavefront will look something like this, such that this wavefront is going to be perpendicular to this rays. So what will happen is, these rays are going to get incident on this particular prism, something like this. Okay, so this is the thin prism. Okay, this is the plane wavefront. So this is going to be the incident wavefront. Let's name it. This is the incident wavefront. So now, since the speed of light in the glass is going to be lesser than that in the air, we know that speed of light reduces in the glass because glass is a denser medium as compared to the air. Okay, so speed of light in the air will be much greater than the speed of light in the prism, inside the prism. Okay, so what is going to happen over here? The lower part of the ray, that is this ray. Okay, let's name it. Let's say this point is over here A. Okay, and this is C, and let's say this is B. So lower part, that is C, of the plane wavefront, which travels through the greater thickness of the glass prism, will be slowed down because this has to encounter a greater thickness. This one will quickly come out because the thickness over here, where the ray A goes inside, at point A goes inside. Okay, here the thickness of the prism is really less. So what will happen? The time with which the ray is going to come out will be quicker as compared to the ray which is in the down part, which is traveling through the down part, because the thickness over here will be more, will be greater thickness. Okay, so what is going to happen over here is, the ray will obviously get refracted. This ray is going to get refracted from here. Okay, again this ray is going to get refracted over here, but by the time this ray reaches over here, this travels so much distance in the air, this ray which is at C, the lower part of the prism, would have traveled only a small distance because it has already delayed inside. Why it is delayed inside? Because the thickness of the prism is more. Since the thickness of the prism is more over here, the speed of the light will become lesser. So by that time this one will already exit out, because the thickness is lesser over here. So by the time this one is traveling inside, the top one will be already exiting out and must have traveled a longer distance outside already. But this one which is at a down part will take a longer time, will come out slowly, and then it will pick up a speed. So you will see that by the time this ray, the top ray has reached a point A dash, okay, the down ray, that is C, must have reached C dash over here. And if you join these 2 points, what you are going to get over here is the refracted wavefront. You will see that this refractive wavefront is going to be exactly perpendicular to the rays again. Okay, so this explains you the tilting of the plane wavefront after refraction through a glass prism. This is how the wavefront will get tilted through certain angle after the refraction of light through a prism. Okay, so this is going to be your refracted wavefront. So I'll repeat one more time. The figure which you can see over here shows the refraction of a plane wavefront through a thin prism. Since the speed of light in the glass is smaller than in the air, therefore the lower part of C of the plane wavefront, which travels through the greater thickness of the glass prism, is going to be slowed down the most, and the upper part A, which travels through the minimum thickness of the glass prism, is slowed down the least. So this will explain you, this figure explains you how the plane wavefront is going to get tilted, okay, after the refraction happens through a prism. Now let us see the behavior of a convex lens. So supposing I have a convex lens here. Let's say this is my convex lens over here. The ray of light is coming from this side, parallel rays of light. So obviously there is going to be a plane wavefront over here, which is going to be perpendicular to the parallel rays of light. This is going to be my plane wavefront. Let's name it as A, B and C. Okay, so this is called as the incident wavefront, and wavefront is always perpendicular to the ray of light. So what is going to happen over here is this is going to go straight and get refracted eventually when it encounters the lens. But if you see at the upper part and the lower part, that is at A and C, the ray is going to encounter a shorter thickness, and ray B is going to encounter a greater thickness at the center, because convex lens is bulged out at the center. Thickness is more at the center for a convex lens, so it is going to encounter a greater thickness. So the time this one will take to come out of the lens will be comparatively more than the time taken by A and C to come out of the lens. Okay, so if we consider the rays after refraction, this ray would have reached over here. This ray must have reached over here. This one will come equally out because they are going through the same thickness. But the middle one would remain behind because it had to travel a greater thickness. And since it is glass, the speed of light will reduce. So it will delay itself inside the lens. So it will be left behind. So now if I join these 3 points, how the wavefront will become? So wavefront will be something like this. So wavefront will be a curved surface here. Okay, so these rays are obviously going to get converged at a point. Okay, let's assume that it is converged over here. So this becomes, this wavefront which you see over here is the refracted wavefront. This is the refracted wavefront. So the figure over here is showing us the refraction of a plane wavefront through a convex lens. The central part, that is B of the plane wavefront, travels through a greater thickness of the lens and is therefore slowed down the most. The marginal parts, that is A and C of the wavefront, travel through minimum thickness of the lens and therefore slowed down the least. So the emerging wavefront is spherical and converges to a focus. So basically the refracted wavefront is going to be the spherical one. That was in case of prism, it was a plane wavefront but it was tilted. In case of a convex lens, it is going to be a spherical wavefront. The refracted wavefront is going to be a spherical wavefront. And the third case is concave mirror. You will see the behavior of a concave mirror. So in this case, let us consider a concave mirror. So inner surface is reflecting in a concave mirror. So let us consider a parallel ray of light over here, and at the center. So here we are going to have a plane wavefront, that is the incident wavefront, which is perpendicular to the ray of light. So this is a mirror. So here the reflection is going to take place. So all the three rays are going to get reflected. So this ray will get reflected. Maybe after some time t, it has reached over here. Maybe after some time t, it has reached over here. This ray after some time must have reached over here, like this. Okay, but this ray, since it has to travel a little more distance as compared to the top rays, that is ray A, let's say this is B and this is C. Since B has to travel a greater distance, if you compare this distance, it has to travel this much distance more. It has to go and come back, correct? No? So obviously it will take a delay. There will be a delay over here which is happening. So what is going to happen? By the time the other rays have already reached at that point, this ray would go and would reach maybe at this point over here. This has reached over here, this has reached over here, but this would have delayed and been behind there. Okay, so if you join these points, you are going to get again a spherical wavefront here. So this is going to be your reflected wavefront. Okay, so this is going to get converged to a point, that is focus. Obviously these rays are going to get converged, okay, to focus. Okay, so here the figure shows us the reflection of plane wavefront from a concave mirror. So the central part B of the incident wavefront has to travel a greater distance before getting reflected as compared to the marginal parts, that is A and C. Therefore the central portion B of the reflected wavefront is closer to the mirror than the marginal portions, that is A dash and C dash. If we mark them as A dash, C dash and B dash, you see that B dash is closer to the mirror and A dash and C dash are away from the mirror. Hence the reflected wavefront is spherical and going to converge at a focus. So these are basically the behaviors of prism, convex lens and a concave mirror. Okay, and the respective wavefronts generated over here.